Hey everyone, welcome to our webinar. This is part of the Plug into Jira series, and we'll be talking about Jira software integrations for high-performing teams today. My name is Scott White, and I'm a product marketing manager here at Atlassian. And today I want to just kick things off by saying that we'll be answering questions throughout the webinar. So please feel free to drop any questions into the Q&A chat, and then we'll be doing a Q&A at the end, answering all the questions that we haven't gotten to, or any other questions that you might have that come up during the presentation. And with that, I want to introduce Ophir Zivi. He is a product manager here on the Jira Software team, and he will be taking it from here.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Plug into Jira. Thanks for signing on today. My name's Ophir, and I'm a product manager in Jira Software. Today I'll be talking about Jira Software integrations for high-performing teams. I'm really excited to talk about this topic because I think we've done so many good stuff, and I can't wait to dive in. Let's get started. Your data is stuck in your tools. Modern software teams' toolchains are comprising of more tools than ever these days, but the data is stuck in each individual tool. The more information that you have, the better the plan and execution you can achieve. However, most of your dev data is siloed in your tools, keeping it separate from the planning process. And that means more than ever, it's going to be challenging to use this data to inform your plans and use it to report on your execution as you get ready for your customers. Developers underpin the success of any software development that takes place within your organization, so it's important to keep them happy. Just in 2019, a report from ActiveState revealed that 61% of developers spend less than 4 hours a day writing code. That can't be good for job fulfillment prospects. So what's getting in the way? Well, firstly, team coordination breaks down without a reliable source of truth. To name a few situations that we've seen, 2 developers might pick up the same issue because the status wasn't updated. Sometimes design docs and conversations about work are overlooked because they're not captured in the issue context. There can be multiple backlogs of vulnerabilities with different owners and triaging processes to decide what gets worked on. Sometimes there's excessive meetings that are scheduled since the context of work isn't clear without them. There's also a culture of constant interruptions to focus as teammates and managers need to ask for status updates, and that ruins developers' flow. The other problem is that there's a whole load of ad hoc processes impacting developer experience. And these things cost time as well. Like they fill in a lot of gaps in time. And so jumping between the various interfaces of your IDE, your source code management tool, Jira, your CI/CD tool, your feature flag provider to just understand the status of your work, that's the time sink. Spending time manually syncing up data between your security vulnerabilities and the issues that fix them, that's a time sink. And same goes when jumping between your Jira, Confluence, Google Docs, and Figma to understand the work you need to do when you're assigned a task. And just to leave you with some stats, it takes 23 minutes to get back into a task after an interruption, so you definitely want to avoid context switching. 43% of meetings could also be eliminated with no real adverse consequences. The average developer spends almost 11 hours per week in meetings. If you do the math, that gives you a good few hours back. Let's look at what we're doing in Jira Software and how we plan to help you folks address these challenges that you're probably already quite familiar with. So our beliefs with our software solution is that there's no single way to build software. We also think that it's best to keep in sync with the source of truth and to break down data silos. So how do we actually deliver on this? Move my head out of the way so you can read this a little better. Firstly, there's tool agnostic design. we open our platform to your favorite tools and in-house solutions. We haven't gone and locked you into only using Atlassian products because we believe that the way you want to work is the right way a lot of the time. Our tools should grow with you and they should suit your preferences and ways of working. We're here to partner with you on that journey, and so that's why we don't say we only work with specific tools. We also work where you please. We want to keep things in sync, and your source of truth is the work itself. Forget about jumping between all these different tools to update the status in 10 different places. If you update it in a tool that's integrated with Jira, it'll update in Jira, and vice versa. We also have features and insights spanning your toolchain. And we believe that we can build these in a way that focuses on what you need to get done, not where your data lives. So if you think about the DORA metrics, which stands for DevOps Research Association, a group of smart folks that have defined some really good measures for what developer productivity looks like. You can see that they look at data from your code, your CI/CD tools, and your service environments in order to know whether you're performing. And so capabilities like that are not possible if you just have a point integration with individual categories of tools and they do their own thing. Our platform is built around data. And so we can go and show you insights, reports that aggregate and pull that data from many different sources. And so we build in a way that focuses on what you need to get done, not where the data actually lives. To give a bit more insight here. So we've built these deep integrations that are based on data. So Atlassian actually builds features on top of the data your integrations connect from your toolchain. And so to emphasize this, these are Jira features that are a focus of our roadmap and to keep up to date. They're not just like one-off integrations that break and we forget about. The integrations are just a way to sort of get that data that will power your features. So you connect your data once and you get all the benefits throughout all the goodness we've built into Jira. So if you connect your source code management tool and you've got your repository data hooked up into Jira, we have a concept of that repository object within Jira, and we can show that to you in all the relevant places. So for example, we've got the development panel in Jira. We can show it to you there, and we can show it to you in the code tab where it shows you all the relevant PRs. And so I'll talk a bit more in detail about that later, but just to sort of give you the gist there. And in the future as well, when we want to build more use cases, we have that concept of data that we can then build and solve your problems. So we're always open to feedback. If you want to let us know in the comments or in feedback later on, once you've had to think about it, let us know. And we can make your data work for you. For other cases where you might have multiple tools that you're using within the same category. So for example, you could be using Sneak and JFrog together to track vulnerabilities, serving different needs. You can review and triage the vulnerabilities from both of those tools in one unified backlog with a consistent visual and management experience. So there's no going into each individual tool and having different processes. And just because the person managing the Sneak backlog is a bit more active, those issues tend to be created when actually the ones in JFrog are more important. We want to bring that into one place so the team can have visibility and make prioritization and planning decisions based on one source of truth. As you can also see in this view, we have a lot of integration categories here, and I'm excited to dive a bit deeper into a few of the integrations. This is going to be a really high level overview, but I just wanted to call out that in your resources tab in this webinar, you'll find some details walkthroughs of the categories, which I highly recommend watching if there's anything that you want to deep dive or a live demo for. All right, so here we go. Let's get started on the different integration categories that we've got. So first of all, we've got documentation. And there's a couple of features here that I'm really excited to walk you through. One of the more recent ones that we've got is this release notes feature. If you haven't discovered already, there's the versions tab in Jira Software, and we've been doing some really great work over there to turn that into more of a release hub. And I'll touch a bit more on that later. But we've now built a really great Confluence integration over there, and release notes are now a native concept there. And you can store and create your release notes right over there from Jira Software. The other exciting feature that we've launched is retrospectives after a sprint. So we all know that it's important to reflect and to improve on your team practice. And what better opportunity is there to do when you finish your sprint? We can hold a placeholder for you, and you can check a box to go and create a retro template in Confluence. So your team can go in, jump in, add all their notes, and you can run your retro when you see fit. I also am really excited to announce that we are now launching in beta a Google Drive integration in this Project Pages tab over here in Jira. So very shortly, you'll be able to come into this tab in Confluence, or maybe even here today, if you're part of our beta cohort. And previously, where you could have just had Confluence, you can now add Google Drive, and you can connect to multiple Google Drives that will stay in sync, and you'll see all the documents from that shared drive over here in the context of Jira. We've also got a lot of super exciting planning integrations that are worth covering. So we've got great integrations with Miro and Lucidchart. So as you can see here, those can all get linked over here. Your boards and diagrams can get all linked into your issues, which is great, especially when you're working in engineering. You might have design diagrams, you might have user flows and that sort of thing. You can map them all out in those tools and visualize them in your issues so that you can see that all in context rather than having to chase up all the different links, spend time doing that. And coming soon, we're giving a really exciting refresh to our Figma integration. So as you can see here, you can see your designs right in the context of Jira without having to go and navigate to Figma. You can see the issues linked to the design, the recent changes, and the linked integrations and comments all in the context of Jira. We've also got a great source code management and CI/CD integration with Jira Software. So as you can see, the code tab that I mentioned earlier, all your connected repositories that you've been recently working on by putting an issue key in your commit message, which by the way, if you don't do that already, super effective way to hook up your repo data and pull requests, commit messages with your Jira Software issues. We keep track of where you've been working, and we show that to you over here so you can see what the team has been up to. We also keep track of all the open pull requests across all those issues in your project, and we show you that list of pull requests over here. So your manager or even you can go and see what's in flight across the team. I also wanted to touch on the fact that there are some automations over here with these tools, and I'll cover them just a bit later. The other really exciting thing is the deployments timeline view that we've got over here. So this is a pretty loaded view, but as you can see, with each individual issue, when you hook up your CI/CD data, um, we can see all your deployments. And so we know when your issue has been deployed to a staging environment, to a production environment, and we can visualize that to you right here on a timeline. And even better, because we know when you're deploying and what sort of environment you're deploying to, we can give you really great insights, deployment insights. We can show you the deployment frequency, which is a DORA metric, and we can also show you your cycle time. And that's bringing everything together across code and CI/CD. I also want to talk a bit more about security in Jira. So this is our newest tab that we've launched in Jira, and it's super exciting because you can filter and triage the vulnerabilities that you get in Jira, turn them into or create Jira issues, and then assign those to team members who need to address them. So that's saving that loop of going, looking in your backlog of sneak issues and figuring out which ones you want to go and create. You can even set up an automation to automatically create issues for critical vulnerabilities that you want to prioritize. And it's worth calling out actually that this isn't just for Sneak, it's for any security tool that you have. So if you're using multiple, you can connect them all and have one unified backlog for all of that. The other thing I wanted to highlight is that you can easily manage all of the containers that you've got connected over here in this security view. And the vulnerabilities from those containers will then all show up over here for your team to look through. I also briefly touched on the Release Hub earlier, which is a super exciting feature that we've been working on. So just to dive a bit deeper, you can see that there's this new related work section where users can connect all the work that they've got going on as part of a release and categorize it for what type of work it is. So as you can see here, we've got one communication document linked, two dev docs linked, and two testing docs. And we can see the status and track that work through issues, which is super powerful. We also see all the list of issues that are attached to this release, their status. We can see their deployment status and PR status, the version control status, and then the production environment that it's deployed to. Over here, you can even see, if you're using a feature flag tool, what percentage of rollout the feature flag is at. Over here on the right, you can see that we've got the new panel to show you the release status, which helps you see who's working on this release, who's driving it, when the work started, and when it's planned to be released. Most recently, we added this new approvers feature, which can show you where you can assign users within your team to approve various parts of the release, and you can see and track the status of that. Now let's talk about automations. This is a personal favorite of mine because automations are not just useful and super great at saving time, but they're also a really big part of getting the right data quality that you need for reporting. So to give you some examples of how we use it, you could set up an automation that moves an issue to done when a PR has been approved. It depends how your team works and what your workflow is, but you could even go and use a different automation that goes and says, well, when my issue is deployed to production using my CI/CD integration, then move it to done. And so if you've got these automations set up and they're being in sync with where the work is at, your reporting is all going to be standardized across all the different teams that use it. And what I really love about that is that when you want to rely on those things like DORA metrics, you can trust that users just haven't forgotten to update their issue status. And you can build really powerful insights to help your team get better and improve. Some other examples that we've got for what you can do with our automation platform is you could look at when a build fails and you could add a comment in Jira and send a Slack message. And as I touched on before, if a critical vulnerability is created, send a Slack message. And there's heaps more that you can play around with if you visit our automation library in the product. Now, I also wanted to, I know that can be overwhelming seeing so many different categories and types of tools, and it's hard to get a grasp of where to start. So what I always like to recommend to teams is that you visit this Toolchain page, which is in project settings. So if you're a project admin, you can go into any Jira project that you have permissions for. You can open up the Toolchain page in project settings, and you'll see a view like this. From here, you can see all the categories in the software development lifecycle, and it groups every integration that you've got and added to your project by the stage of that software development lifecycle. And for the deeper integrations where we actually have that concept of the data, you can see that all right over here in the Toolchain page. You can also, if you want to get an idea of what kind of integrations there are, under this Add button up in the top right, you can click there and you can see all the categories within those SDLC groupings. And you can look at what kind of tools you have, browse through, install the ones that are relevant, and give them a go. See how you can get your toolchain to work for you. I always recommend at least getting started with source code management, CI/CD. Maybe try integrate Figma and some of those planning tools like Miro if you're using them, because they can really help your team with their workflow. You can also explore more of our integrations in the marketplace. Now, I wanted to talk a bit about leveraging integrations in practice. So with this example, I want to tell you about a team that used DORA metrics to increase agility. And hint, hint, it's probably my team. So the situation was that my team was struggling a lot with our velocity due to rework and handoff times. We couldn't trust that the issue status was true, and so we didn't know when tasks were completed and when. And people were duplicating work by picking up the same tasks. So what we did was we integrated source code management and CI/CD. We set up an automation to improve the data accuracy. So we had every time we started coding on an issue, and we had a commit against an issue, we set our automation to move the issue to in progress. And we set up an automation to transition the issue to done every time there was a production deployment. That meant that the issue was always moving between the different columns we had in our workflow. After that, we were able to review the DORA metrics that were automatically generated in our Insights tab, and we could also view them in the Reports tab, and then we could review those in our sprint retrospective. Looking at all those metrics, our team has been seeing a trend of continuous improvement in velocity. I also wanted to touch on my team's experience with using security in Jira to reduce context switching. So our team had been struggling with operational health due to interruptions and unplanned work. We often found ourselves working on the wrong things, like lower priority vulnerabilities when there were higher things or more urgent things in the backlog. And we were using 3 different tools to raise security vulnerabilities. So it's super hard to keep track of that across all the different tools that we had. So what we did was we set up security in Jira. We connected all those 3 tools up, and that gave us one backlog to go and view everything. The impact was that it allows our team to incorporate security into our planning process, and we could manage our vulnerabilities way more efficiently. And we now have a ritual where we go and review everything every time we do our sprint planning to figure out what needs to get done and what are the critical issues to focus on. And we're still continuing on our DevOps journey, trying to see what else we can hook up and get working. All right, that's the end of the presentation. I wanted to also jump through some frequently asked questions that we get all the time. So number 1, what is the configuration process for Toolchain apps? This is a good one because it's not always so obvious. So the best starting point, if you're looking to get started with some of our core integrations like GitHub or Jenkins, is if you go to our support documentation for Open DevOps, you'll be able to find integration instructions and guidance and setup guidance for each of those tools. You can also see on the marketplace itself, there'll be documentation linked over there, and you can find the links to configure. Number 2, what if my tool isn't supported? So as I mentioned earlier, our tool is designed to be, our product, Jira Software, is designed to be open so that we can support many tools. But that said, not every category is ready yet in an open way. And in some cases where we are open, there aren't integrations that have been built yet. And so what I recommend, if that's your situation, is that you come into our Toolchain page, which I walked through earlier, and where you can open that tool dialog to see what are all the tools that you can add. There's a little section over there where you can request what tool you'd like to be integrated with. We monitor that dashboard pretty regularly, and yeah, that's the best way. If we get that feedback, we can act on it. And I can definitely share that we have actually been taking that very seriously and been looking at building some of the most popular integrations on that dashboard. Number 3, so why don't I see these features that you've walked through in my Jira project today? This is another great question. And it's because not all the features are enabled by default in Jira. To get some of the benefits, what you have to do is go into your project settings, like once again, if you're a project admin, and you can go into the features settings page, and over there you can toggle all these features on. From there, you can turn on security in Jira, you can turn on the code tab, the pages tab, and I highly recommend turning on everything to get an idea of what you want, and then you can kind of cut back from there, even if it's just in a test project. Number 4, where do I start my integration journey? So this is another really good question because it's something that a lot of teams struggle with. I know it can be overwhelming seeing so many different categories of tools, so many different features, and it can be a lot of work to sort of get set up and get going. So what I recommend is actually starting with the integration that can serve you best. In most cases, the feedback that I hear is getting set up with a source code management tool, whether that be GitHub, Bitbucket, or GitLab for yourself, can be the best place to start, because a lot of people typically use those tools for CI/CD as well. If that's the case for you, it's setting up one integration that's going to sort of give you data from 2 different categories, and that can go a long way. It can power, it's like 2 birds in 1 stone. Once you do that, and if you're not using the same CI/CD tool, I would probably recommend that as a fast follow. And then probably third, I would go with a tool like Figma or Miro. Another popular choice of tools is security and testing tools, which we hear really good feedback for those integrations. 5. What are some examples of practices that this enables? So I think we covered those before. And the other thing that I just wanted to share is that we've got a whole bunch of practices in the Atlassian playbook on our website. So if you search Atlassian playbook, you'll be able to find a list of practices that we can guide you through that involve not just our tools, but many other tools and ways of working. And you can see how integrations can serve you as part of that. Number 6, what's the best practice to educate my team on how to get the benefits of an integration once it's set up? I can totally understand this question. I know it can be a lot of work to go and set up an integration, and it can be really discouraging when it's hard to get the message out, especially if you're in a larger organization, for how to get that going. What I recommend is that once you set up an integration, there's a lot of really great resources from Atlassian on the benefits of those integrations, both on our support website and also on the marketplace listings themselves. What I would do is put together a little brief or send that link around so that teams know that they can start to enjoy those tools. And then they can start to get the benefits of the productivity benefits that we spoke about.
Thanks everybody for taking the time to join today. Again, my name is Scott, and I'm joined here with Afir. We're going to be taking some Q&A from you all. I hope that you enjoyed that conversation about the integrations, and I want to just remind you all that in the Q&A, you can put your questions. We'll be answering them. And I want to just put a couple plugs in for Plugin to Jira before we get going. We do monthly office hours to talk about these integrations and to help you get started or get unstuck wherever you happen to be. And this month, on August 23rd, 24th, next week, we'll be coaching around the SCM, the Source Code Management integration. So you can register for that today in the Resources tab, which is in the top right of your window next to the Q&A tab. And also we have the Atlassian DevOps community, where you can learn about Jira Software, all the integrations that we just talked with you about, and hear about new features. And you can always interact with us by asking questions in the comments of the community, and we're really present and communicative there. It's another avenue to get in touch with us and to learn more. The resources that are listed in that tab are a lot of the articles that we put into the community, which talk about the different integrations and the benefits of them and how to use them. So I really encourage you all to check that out and to learn more there. And without further ado, we're going to get to your questions. So keep putting them into the chat, and we'll get to them as they come up. So the first question is, Afir, can we connect multiple SCM tools?
Yeah, of course you can. So as I mentioned earlier, we've got a generic data model, which basically means that we define the concept of a repository and a pull request and a commit so that it can be generically sent across any sort of tool that integrates with Jira Software. And also, if you want to integrate your own bespoke tools, we'll have a concept of what that is as well. So yeah, we give you a consistent view. And if you're struggling to manage across, let's just say, use GitHub for an open source project and Bitbucket for the rest of your code, you can have amazing features like the code tab, which standardize where you can see your pull requests and how you can sort of prioritize them across your two different tools rather than having to sort of jump between the two of them. So we actually make that experience much better of using multiple SCM tools together.
Great, and that's also with some of the other integrations like security that we talked about, that the benefit of multiple tools being integrated really helps with the workflows. here's another question. So, um, what is the best tool for CI/CD if the code repository is in the GitHub Enterprise in the cloud? It's a very specific question, but maybe it's something that we can answer. We could follow up with later.
Yeah, so different teams will have different preferences. It's kind of hard to sort of like know what will be best for your organization without having details. But one thing that we find is a lot of customers would prefer to use the built-in CI/CD capabilities of the SCM tools. So for example, GitHub has GitHub Actions available. If you're using Bitbucket, you have Bitbucket pipelines, and I'm pretty sure GitLab has their own version of that. So a lot of people like to use those two in the same package because it means there's one sort of bill and it's all under one roof in terms of management. And in terms of Jira, at least, it makes your configuration process super easy because you just have to configure those tools once and they'll sort of work across source code management, CI/CD, once you integrate. But one thing that we find is that many people prefer to use Jenkins or Circle CI, which are sort of standalone CI/CD tools for their workflows because they have more features and maybe it's for cost reasons. So that can work as well. You can set up your pipelines as needed. And then when it comes to integrating them with Jira, you have to integrate them separately. But we can sort of abstract that all away from your experience and make it super smooth on our end. So it doesn't really matter what you use in terms of your experience with Jira.
All right, great. Here's the next question. Let's do this one. Who can enable integrations? And we talked about this a little bit, but it's a good call out.
Yeah, that's a great question. So you've got to have the org admin or site admin permission in order to install and configure an app. One thing that I didn't mention in the presentation that is worth diving into a bit deeper, once you install an app, there's actually that configuration step that is critical before you can get the data from all of your toolchain into Jira. So if you go into the apps tab in the top of your Jira navigation and you have the right permissions, there's also a new permission scheme that's being rolled out, which I won't dive into, but if you've got the right permissions to install and configure an app, you'll see that there's a manage apps section in that apps tab. You can click into there. All the apps installed on your Jira will show up and there'll be a get started or configure button that you can click in there in order to set up that configuration. So if you haven't done that already and you thought you were done installing the app, make sure you go and you do that as well. And find the admins in your team and who else. Sometimes you'll need the admin from the third-party tool that you're integrating. So make sure you can loop them into the conversation and kick off that process. So sometimes it's not just going to be a permission issue from the Jira side.
Cool, thanks for clarifying that one. All right, here's another question we just got. Do you have to switch on the features per project? Once you've tested them, can you switch them on globally?
Yeah, great question. So we have a set of defaults for the different features, but they will be switched on for you. We're just in the process now of rolling out a new experience in Project Create that switches on based on the tools that you've got installed on your site. Like for example, if we see that you've got a source code tool, we'll automatically switch on the code tab for you. If we see that you've got Confluence, we'll automatically switch on the pages tab for you. And you'll get all those defaults according to the sort of the tools you have enabled, because our philosophy is that if you've gone through all the work of setting up these tools and connecting them with Jira, that you would want to use the features that are powered by them. And so, yeah, we're open to feedback as we sort of roll that out, and we'd love to hear from you a bit more.
All right, here's another, I think this is a really interesting question too. How can we get help for the integrations implementation if we don't have time for an internal team to do it? Does Atlassian support this at any level, or is there a consulting company that you recommend or any other partner that you prefer?
Yeah, so I won't go into any specific partners, but I do know that there are many solution partners on the market that do support you with integrations. And so you can find them. I think there should be a list of all our different partners on our website. And you can also reference the Atlassian community to ask people for experience and how that's been done. I do really empathize with the fact that integrations, people don't always have time to set up integrations and it can be difficult. But one thing that I did want to share is that we're really working on making this process easier, less error prone, and smoother, so that it can almost be something you do with your eyes closed. So do give that a go and see what needs to be done. And if you do get stuck, yeah, our solution partners are sort of there to help with, and our community is always super helpful.
All right, and here's an easy one. Are there additional costs for these features?
No. So all the features that we build on top of integration data are built by Atlassian, and they're included as part of your overall package. So we really want you to use them. We want you to enjoy them. And we believe that Jira is more valuable when it's connected with integrations. And so we don't want to stop you from getting that value and visibility across your toolchain.
This one just came in, and so I'm going to read it as we go. For the Mend, the security integration to Mend, can you view the firm, department, the team, the project, the hierarchy in general, so we can see where the issues are being created from or where in the org they originate?
I will say that that is really great feedback. And yeah, if you go into the security tab in Jira today, there's a feedback collector. And if you submit that there, it'll go right back to the team. And they have been super good. Like, they're meeting weekly to triage all the feedback that goes there. And so any request that you have, they're being actively listened to and prioritized. So the more you kind of ask for what's going to be valuable and helpful to you, the more likely they are to build it if it's not supported already. And so they're actively working with our partners, and especially given that they've recently shipped, they are really looking to help you and to meet new use cases. So please go and share that feedback over there for them.
Great. So we have a couple more minutes, so we're going to answer a couple more questions. But if you have any more questions, please put them into the Q&A chat. If we do not get to your question, what we'll be going to be doing is we're going to be posting kind of a follow-up to all the questions on the community, on the DevOps community that we have listed right here. So I encourage you all to join the community so that you can see those questions as they come through. We'll explicate anything that we haven't been able to have a chance to here. And again, if you have any more questions, just let them go. But I will continue going through this list that we have. Can the release tab take issues from multiple Jira projects, or is it available only at the project level?
At the moment, the release tab is visible just at the project level, the one that I presented. But if you're part of Jira Software Premium, you have access to something called Advanced Roadmaps, which is the hub for all sort of cross-project data. So, yep, you can view cross-project releases in there, I believe. It's been a while since I played around with that product, but have a check, and yeah, you should be able to at least submit your feedback over there.
All right. And I'm going to take this one. This one's easy for me. It's easy enough for me. Where can we learn more about automation in Jira? And I just wanted to call out that this week on our Plugin in Jira series that this is part of, in the community, we're going to be posting an article about how to leverage automations from the integrations that you have, and how the more integrations that you do, the more powerful those automation capabilities are. So I would recommend to you to join the community and look for the article coming later this week. If not, we have a lot of documentation about automation on the website that you can check out.
Just to add to that.
Oh yeah, go, please do.
Yeah. Another thing that I really recommend is in the Toolchain page, we will have a list of all the, if you go and fill out all the integrations that you've got over there, there'll be a little lightning bolt that pops up for every single tool that you've got that supports an automation, and you'll be able to browse and figure out what sort of automations you can add around your tools right over there once you sort of fill out your tool chain. So go and map out your team's tool chain and see what sort of and explore what sort of automations you have for all of the tools that you've got there.
Great, and let's end on this one. So among the features that may have not been turned on for my projects is there a specific one that, of the integrations that you've gone through today that you recommend enabling first to explore?
Yeah, for sure. So I recommend starting with the source code management and the CI/CD integrations, because I think having that data like coming into Jira is going to be so valuable historically when you want to sort of improve your team's practices and learn and improve. At the end of the day, the developer productivity is the most important thing that you can improve with integrations. And so just to have the data coming in from there and be able to set up those DORA metrics so you can make sure you're continuously improving will go a really long way in terms of helping you there. So that powers a lot of the insights that we can show you in the board and backlog. It can also show you your deployment timeline in the deployments tab, and it can also pull in all that context like pull requests and commits and branches that will really help you navigate to your work from Jira. So that's my highest recommended starting point. Once you've done that, I would say it's worth looking into setting up a planning tool and integrating your security tools over there.
Awesome. All right. Well, that has been our Q&A session and the webinar overall. I really appreciate all of you attending today. And again, we're going to be having office hours next week if you want to learn about the SCM integration. And please join the DevOps community to keep on track on all these integrations, learn more about them, and the features that are coming down the pipeline. Will be highlighting them then there. So on behalf of Ophir and I, thank you again and have a great day. Bye.
Thank you.